9, you were in...
7, 8, 9, I was living in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, yeah.
And we were living in it was sort of a half and half Jewish place, mostly about 3/4 Jewish. But surrounding us, there were a lot of, it was a big Italian area. And then from another district, they were a bunch of districts. Whatever it was, if you lived in a Jewish Brooklyn neighborhood, you could be attacked unless you knew how to handle yourself. And I had to learn immediately how to handle myself. First of all, even if you were brand new, for example, and my mother and aunt, Minnie, went upstairs to look at the apartment, see if it was good for us. And while I was downstairs, the bunch of kids grabbed a hold of me and made me fight somebody in the middle yard. And because I had had a fight like that in Philadelphia and had gotten, well, I didn't know I got into a fight, but this guy had an apparatus that enabled him to make movies with Krazy Kat movies. And the kids in the neighborhood on the opposite side of where we were living went into his house and they saw this. And I, innocently enough, I just went in at the tail end of a group and saw Krazy Kat. Well, he didn't notice that once or twice, but eventually he did, and he punched me in the nose, and I got a bloody nose, and I ran home and cried to my mommy. And she said, well, that's a shame that you got hit so badly. And she fixed it so that my nose stopped bleeding after a short while. And she said, now, what I want you to do is to hang around the same neighborhood, and when you see this guy, punch him in the nose immediately and run home. And so I said, well, you know, he's a lot bigger than me, and I don't want to get into a fight with him. She said, well, I don't care about that, whether you like it or you don't like it. I want you to learn how to fight somebody who is fighting you. So just do as I'm telling you, because you'll benefit from it. So I cried a little bit, and then I did it. And
punched him in the nose?
Yes, I went back and punched him in the nose. And the next thing that happened is his father dragged his kid to our house and rang the doorbell. And I knew what was going to happen, so I went upstairs. And in those days, there were things called big little books. They were about this big, and each page was a part of a story. It was called the Big Little Books. Mm-hmm. That was before the other kinds of books came out. That was a very early book type of thing. So I was, you didn't have to know how to read. You just followed the picture. You know, it was a picture book. Mm-hmm. And so I learned to do that. So this guy came in with his son, and he explained to my mother that his son says that your son punched him in the nose. And so my mother said, well, that's a true part of the story, but it's not the entire truth of the story. So he said, well, what do you mean by that? So she said, well, I'll bring my son down, and he'll tell that part of the story. So she said, now you tell. And she did. I called her. She called me up and told me to come down. I came down. Did you punch him in the nose when after he punched you in the nose? I said, yes, he did. He said, well, why did, he said, well, oh, that makes the story a little different. I'm going to ask my son if that's the true story from his. Well, yeah, it is the case. I did punch him in the nose, but he punched me first, okay? So that was true, too, because I punched. No, I didn't punch him first. I punched him second, but he punched me
first.
He punched me first. So he said, well, I guess in that case we're about even, and thank you for letting me know how the story went. So now I know how I'm going to teach my son. So I never saw him again. I never tried to get into his cellar again and see the Krazy Kat movies, because they were the very early movies for kids. Yeah. So, but I liked living in Philadelphia where we lived, and I liked the area, and I was able on my tricycle to go all kinds of places, and I was exploring the whole neighborhood on my tricycle.
Was that Philadelphia or Brooklyn?
Philadelphia.
Or Brooklyn?
Philadelphia.
Was it
Philadelphia?
Oh, you lived in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philadelphia.
Oh.
And then we moved into Brooklyn. And in Philadelphia, I knew that we were living off of my Aunt Minnie, who had a boyfriend who was part of the group, a big expensive group that was making money, a lot of money, Philadelphia people. But they eventually dropped him because he was a Yid himself, and he had grown up in an orphanage, and he was only let out when he was old enough to get away from the orphanage. But he was a very bright guy. He taught me an awful lot. He taught me how to do things. He taught me how to defend myself, how to fight better. He taught me magic tricks. He taught me all sorts of one thing after the other. And he continued until he committed suicide because he was heartbroken when the very rich people threw him out, and
they threw him out.
Yeah, threw him out.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but he had bought me a sled, and he bought me some other thing. He bought me a few things, and he bought me a dog, a nice, lovely dog. And I had that dog until I got into the Army.
Really?
Yeah. And everybody in the neighborhood played with that dog. It was just a wonderful dog. Yeah. So at any rate, yeah.
When you were in the Army, did you design something that was like some kind of I don't know if it was a missile or a guided thing that went through the water and could...
Oh, that was much later.
Oh,
that was after I got a job, after I got out of the Army, I got a job in Manhattan, I got a job in an engineering place that was part of how do I put this? In where the Capitol is, there are a bunch of different things. There there are museums and educated places and this and that, but there was also an outfit that was designed to increase the ability to fight the wars.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was there, and my job was to design a torpedo that would follow the wake of a ship. And when it followed the wake of a ship adequately, it would let the bomb part in the torpedo hit the ship
Mm-hmm.
and explode it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I designed that. That was my achievement.
Wow, that's what an achievement that was.
Yeah, it was a big achievement.
You had a big background in physics and science.
Yeah, I know, I did.
Chemistry,
I
right?
did. Yeah, I did. And I did that with no real help at all. I did it all.
Yeah, wow.
And I did meet a lot of very interesting people
Mm-hmm.
where I was. And I got to know an awful lot of artists and musicians and people who were very talented in many, many ways. And while I was in Philadelphia, in
Washington.
Washington,
Yeah.
D.C., I got acquainted with these people, and 3 of them were like I was. They were socialists. I was a socialist,
Mm-hmm.
and I was still interested in socialism, and I was happy to go with the 3, and we went up to another state, and we circularized socialism
Mm-hmm.
up there and try to recruit people for the Socialist Labor Party.
Yeah.
Yes, at that time.
How was that to try to recruit people?
It didn't work too well, but
Yeah.
but I enjoyed it,
Mhm.
and I enjoyed being with these people as well.
Okay, well, we're going to stop for a minute,
Okay.
and I'm going to come back to 2 questions I have for
Good,
you. So we're
good.
going to stop now.
Good.
And again, this is Mark Sell for YouTube channel Therapy for the Heart with Dr. Lucas, Gerald Lucas. And if you like the channel, if you please push the like button, and you can make comments. Anybody knows Dr. Lucas, you can open up a YouTube channel, and you can do that pretty easily if you have a Gmail account. And I'm sure he would love to hear from anyone out there who would like to say hello.
Okay.
And if you don't have a YouTube channel, that's fine. You can always find the videos on, just go to put Mark Sell into YouTube and you'll find the videos there.
Good.
Pretty easy. Okay, thank you so much. We're going to stop for a minute.